Welcome back to part 2 of this ATAT build. This is going to be the paint job, so I've tried to follow the references as best I can. That's what I came up with. Here comes the paint job. And the gun is this piece. Fits underneath here. I've got the original part here, and that fits into this position here. But the guns in the film actually recoil backwards and forwards as they're firing. And to get this to be more reminiscent of the filming miniature, I've got to kind of put that in. So what have I done? I've taken this piece, I've cut down this line here with a hacksaw, very thin junior hacksaw. So we've got this now, 2 separate parts. I've excavated a couple of channels, fitted a larger diameter tube to the top part that sits underneath the head here. The lower part now has this long tube which is located in this assembly at the back here where I've drilled through and glued it in. So that's, nothing spectacular, but it's a nice little addition to the model. So that's good. This is my equivalent to Floquil bleached grime. It's pretty close to the original colour. Well, to be exact, it's not the same paint, but I'm going to be painting this in a fairly non-traditional model style. I'm going to build up all the layers, I'm going to mix my colours myself to try and match the references. I'm going to take you through my reasoning as to why I paint these things the way that I do. And it's probably way out there, but I don't really care. It's just the way that I do it, and I think it gives a result that emulates the ILM look really nicely without becoming formulaic and this colour is this and this colour is that. We're going to layer the colours up. When you're painting with an airbrush, what you end up with is a fairly transparent colour. So you can layer up the individual pigments to create the final colour. That's the thing that you're trying to do. Rather than it being a base coat, a single colour and a little bit of dirt, what we're looking at is the whole picture, trying to recreate the panel colours, trying to recreate the dirt streaks and everything by using hand-mixed paints. I like it, it's a challenge. We'll see how we get on. Here's our hero. This is exactly the model we're trying to replicate. And we can tell that because the body details on the side here, although they're slightly less crisp than the ones in the Chronicles book, they're definitely there. We can see the strange angle on the streaks here at the front. We can see all the other details. So this is the still taken from the movie of the same hero from a top 3/4 view. We can see the streaks, we can match the lines, we can match the details on the body. This one gives you a much bigger overview of the various tones on the model. We can see this area here, this area here. These panels have all got the same kind of hue to them, and it blends out and changes. So this gives us a fabulous overview. That is the ATAT featured in Return of the Jedi. And that ATAT, on the other side of it, matches the details of this one, our hero. So this is the only picture I know that has something that will be close to the weathering on the opposite side of that hero model. So my first pass on this model, what is it going to be? I mean, there's so many layers. Where do you start? What do? Do you blast on the colours to get the overall effect right? What do you do? Well, there's a million ways you can hit it, but this is the way I'm starting. See the panel lines in the model? You can see some of them are picked out with dirt in the panel lines. And on those areas, that's where the dirt streaks come down vertically, which gives those vertical streaks a reason to exist. If there's no dirt in that panel line, there's no streaks underneath it, right? So what I do is I pick out these areas that I can see have had little pin washes put into them just to chase out the edges of the panels a little fraction. Nothing crazy, it's not the whole panel. These two are quite long, to be fair, and this area is mostly airbrushed, but it's darker here than it is at the end here. This line down here doesn't hardly have any kind of pin wash in the gap, so it's very, very subtle and picked out by the difference in the panel tones. So what I'm doing is ignoring the whole image apart from dark areas on panel lines. What I'm going to do now is go around the whole model doing a pin wash into each of these areas, and I'm not going to be too careful about it. We're going to start with my dark dirt mix, red brown mixed with flat black, gives a blooming horrible colour. This one matches pretty good, so I'm running with this. So what I've done here is, with my very thin mix of red, brown and black, I've put on some rough streaking on the surface. It's very thin, done with a dodgy brush that's all bristly and knackered over the years. See, probably the worst brush that I own, but it's great for doing little weird streaks and what have you. So I've just put on this at the back. It looks messy as hell, and yeah, that's exactly how it should look. I remember what I said before about airbrush layers being translucent. For every little tiny, almost indiscernible bit of streaking on there, as soon as the airbrush hits that, this is going to jump up in contrast. So do your first little streaks with a very, very thin wash to give yourself a guide as to where you want to put your shading, where you want to do all your little bits. You'll hardly even notice this streaking once the rest of the airbrushing and more streaking goes on. But this first initial very light pass is what I think gives them quite a nice feel. All these dodgy edges, they're going to disappear, and indeed we're going to enhance some of them with airbrushing to make them look more natural. So, you know, don't worry too much. I've still got a load more to do on these, so I'm going to bash away for another couple of hours on them. So with this one, I'm just going to change the shade fractionally. I'll pick my colour carefully when I get to it. You can see all these are nice and blotchy. These are the kind of finishes that I want to come through the airbrushing. So there's going to be airbrushing over these steps and all the details and all the runs at the bottom and all the other bits. It'll all start to knit together once I get the layers coming on. But I've got to be careful not to go too dark to start with. So this one, again, is going to be a bit like this, but not as dark as this, because I don't want that kind of contrast. I don't mind it under here because there's a lot of layering to go and it needs to be dark in this recess. But on the side of this thing, it needs to be fairly subtle, but it needs to be there, if you know what I mean. Right, so you can see what I've done there. Very, very tiny little mist in just the areas that I want to capture that shaded effect on there. I'm going to take these two off. I'm going to mask over that one and do the next one with what I can see on the reference. Okay, that's the third panel. It doesn't look like a lot, but it's enough. Remember, when you get these things layering up with the airbrush, you get a lot of other things coming into play. No, I'm following what they did randomly. We're on to this main section here. We'll start off with the top level streaking coming down from this seam here. Got to be careful not to overspray this edge because that's not masked to fit the panel. I'm not worried about that because I'm going to be working in this zone here. But when I get close to the edge, I'll be wanting to add a mask around that radius. Got some weird side-to-side stuff going on. And then we've got along this bottom edge just here, there is the bottom of that section, and it kind of just fans out a bit that way. This one's actually offset a little bit, so do that there. Always looks weird when you start doing this. It's like, what are you doing? It's all blotchy and horrible. Yeah, I know. So it should be. Okay, so now this is 3 days in, all right? Done a lot of picking out all the panel gaps. There's a little bit of shading on the surface. We're nowhere near finished. I've tried to get all the various little marks on the legs matching the reference that we're working to. So we've got a few of the little dots put in place. There's more shading to put over there with the next layer of airbrushing. got the right kind of feel underneath now with the weird wash stuff and that funny X at the front and the shading there. Bit more to do on the bottom there, a bit of tidying up, but we're getting close to being done on the head. Still a little bit plain in between the areas where the weathering is. Bottom's looking all right now, it's matching the reference pretty well. We've got all the blotches in the right places, well, close anyway. Back end's looking better, we got the original kit parts on here now, so they've got much more detail in them, the rivets really stick out. That matches the reference that I've been working to pretty good. We're getting closer to being done. Now I've got to do these parts. So here it is, the finished, completed article. Thank you so much for watching this. If you're still here, you need a medal. Well done. And this is the final thing. 10 days of paintwork, and I hope it's as close to the reference as I can get. It means a lot that people actually bother to watch what I'm doing, to be honest with you, so thanks a lot for sticking with it. If you want to like and subscribe, that'd be fabulous, that'd really help me out. And here are the final shots.